Hello, West Michigan, and everyone else out on the internet, wherever you are. This is the first ever Sportsball with Nick and Jamal. I'm Nick, he's Jamal. And
glad you cleared that up.
Yeah, exactly.
They wouldn't have been able to guess.
They wouldn't have been able to guess, no. I basically think of this as an extraordinarily low-budget PTI. The only major difference, he's black and I'm white. The only difference between Tony and Wilbon is the fact that we actually have hair.
One of many differences, for sure. Experience, skill level, but we'll get there.
Paychecks.
Shoot. Yeah, that's a big one.
They're doing all right. Basically, we're gonna try and do this once a month, and we're gonna pick, anywhere between 2 to 4 sports stories that we just want to talk about. And I think the biggest one going on this week it has to be the Michigan State game.
Of course.
Mike was there, our weekend sports guy was there, and you were working in studio. I referenced it, and I mentioned to you that this has to be, it's the most exciting Michigan State game I can remember. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you agree or not.
I do. What I've been saying all season to you is that never has there been a time in the history of college basketball in this state that Michigan and Michigan State have been this good at the same time.
Yeah.
They've never been ranked as high at the same time. They've never been as competitive as they are right now. Michigan went to the national championship game last year. Michigan State won the Big Ten last year. Mm-hmm. So they've never been as good at the same time. So the 3 games that they played this year, Michigan had a 6-point lead in the second half. Michigan State came back. In the second game, Michigan State trailed by 12. In the second game, they came back. In this championship game on Sunday, Wolverines led by 13. Michigan State had a player severely hurt himself.
Yep.
One of the scariest injuries I've seen on the basketball court in a while. And somehow this team willed themselves back, came from behind, and won the game by 5. And it felt like a heavyweight fight in the sense that both teams are going back and forth. No one's giving an inch, and the fans were loving it. The place was packed. It was pretty much 50-50. So It was unreal.
The thing that struck me watching the game, Michigan State was like the monster in a B Hollywood movie that wouldn't die no matter how times you shot it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's more credit to Michigan State or blame on Michigan that they just wouldn't put them away. And to me, and I also said this, I think the MVP is when they were down by like 9 or 10, the reason it didn't become 15 or 18 is because McQuaid kept hitting shot after shot.
Once that player that got hurt in the game was Kyle Arns.
Yeah.
Kyle Arns is academically a senior, but he had the red shirt because of an injury.
I think he graduated in December, actually.
So he's a red shirt junior, and he and McQuaid have been roommates for a while. And the second Arns got hurt, McQuaid went up to him and said, "I got this." And sometimes that's just, players talking. McQuaid went out and walked the walk. Yep. He had 7 3-pointers in that championship game.
Career high
7 threes, career high 27 points. Mm-hmm. And Tom Izzo said that he's like a senior who realizes that the light at the end of the tunnel is coming quickly. So if I'm going to do something, I got to do it now.
Yeah.
And so he's playing like his hair is on fire.
Did Michigan do something wrong? Because I kept looking to think about, okay, where did they actually do? They hit their shots. Mm-hmm. They hit their foul shots. They weren't really in foul trouble. It seemed like they played great perimeter defense. McQuaid's going to hit his threes. You're going to give up that shot all day long. And not Tillman, but
Nick Ward.
Not Nick Ward. He actually was kind of quiet.
True.
The guy I was talking about kept driving in.
Oh, Cassius Winston.
Cassius Winston.
Yep.
It seemed like Michigan did everything you needed to win the game, except win the game.
What Michigan State's done better than any team in the country this year is expose the fact that Michigan doesn't have a guy. And in the past 2 years, you had the big fella, the German young Hasselhoff, Mo Wagner, who you could throw the ball into the post and he would get you a bucket. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman was a senior who could get you a bucket, and they were called run stoppers. Whenever the other team would go on a run, these 2 players would step up and do something to kind of halt that momentum.
Yeah.
And Michigan doesn't have that guy this year, and Michigan State kind of smells blood at times because they know if we push them, for lack of a better term, they'll fold. And that's what Michigan does because they don't have a guy, a leader who will step up and get an offensive bucket or a defensive stop.
Pronounce his name Brisdakis?
Yep, Ignas Brisdakis.
Maybe next year?
Possibly.
He's that guy?
As a freshman, his games against Michigan State this year
amazing.
Are great starts and then kind of falls off toward the end.
Okay.
In the game in Ann Arbor, he started off great. The game in East Lansing, I think he had 9 points in a hurry or something along those lines. Ended up with 13 in the first half. That game against Michigan State and Chicago, he had Michigan's first 9 points and about 13 in the first half. So he starts hot. But then Michigan kind of goes away from him, it seems. And there was no foul trouble. Michigan State defended him a little bit better in the second half, but as a young freshman, he's a little bit older, but he's still a freshman.
Yeah.
He's still figuring out how to become that guy, but you're right, next year should be his team.
One more thing about Tom Izzo, and I'm biased because I'm a Yooper. I also went to Northern Michigan University, and I'm going to preface this by saying I think just about every coach out there loves his players. But when Arns went down, it looked like somebody shot Tom Izzo's dog. He truly, you could see the concern and just the heartbreak for that kid when he went to see him and started walking back to the sideline.
I've heard people criticize Izzo for yelling at his players in a certain way. He'll dress down his guys sometimes on the sideline, and people see that, and it kind of makes Izzo look a little cold at times. But one, the players respond to it.
Yeah,
they wouldn't play for Michigan State if they didn't. So two, in that moment with Orange, you can tell just how much he really does care. They're not just guys passing through the program.
Yeah.
And then for a guy like Orange, who's already battled so many injuries, he's been dealing with a back injury all year that every time he hits the floor, the team winces.
And now his ankle blows up.
For real. And Izzo looks at the guy and goes, this was a dude who I tried to sit him because he wasn't healthy. And Orange's response was, I want to win a Big Ten championship for McQuaid and Kenny Goins, the two seniors. So he's been giving Michigan State everything he could, and you could see that emotion pouring out of Izzo. Nick Ward was crying on the court as well when that injury happened.
Last bit on this, and there's one other story I want to get to. It is an absolute joke that Michigan State, okay, maybe they're not a 1, but you're giving them Duke. The ACC gets 3 number 1 seeds.
That's a joke.
How does that happen?
And I've told you all the time that the Big Ten might not be the most top-heavy conference in the country.
But it's the deepest.
But it's the deepest conference in the country, and that reflects because I can't remember how many teams they got in. I want to say it's 7. Might be as many as 9. The Big Ten got several teams in. Maryland, Michigan State, Iowa, Purdue's in, Ohio State is in.
Most of the conference is in.
Right. There's a lot of Big Ten teams in there. So you would figure if you win the regular season and the tournament and you beat a top 10 team in Michigan 3 times, that you've done enough. But the fact that it's not the fact that Michigan State's a 2 that bothers me, because like you said, you can make an argument for 1. It's the fact that by putting them in the region with Duke,
the number 1 overall team,
you're telling the country that Michigan State was the worst 2 seed in the country. So they're the 8th best team, and that's nowhere close to being true.
No.
So
it's a joke.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Yeah,
pretty messed up.
This may be the first and last show we ever do where both the stories I want to talk about are basketball.
Okay.
Iron Mountain and Pewamo, Westphalia, I believe, was it the Division 4 high school state final?
D4 state final.
D4 state final. If you're from Michigan, you probably know the story. If you're watching us from elsewhere, look up the video from the last 2 minutes of this game. Iron Mountain was up, I think, 1, and there's about a minute left, less than that, probably like 30 seconds, actually.
There was 11 seconds.
11 seconds left. Is that the layup?
Yep.
Kid gets a pass for a home run layup. No one between him and the basket. Catches the ball, takes 2 steps, put it in. A referee from 50 feet back calls traveling. And then in the very next moment, Pewamo, Westphalia has the ball. Iron Mountain, fouls, and they call it intentional.
Yep.
And boom, Pewamo, Westphalia.
2 shots and the ball.
And it's 0.7 seconds left, game over.
Game over.
I have never, and I always back up referees because I'm a hockey ref.
I was going to ask you about that.
I could not believe this. They got robbed like I've never seen kids get robbed before.
What bothers me so much, it's not the missed call. As a ref, you admit missed calls happen.
They happen.
So that people are human. The fact that the ref made the call furthest away and the ref who was closest didn't step in and go, no, you got that wrong.
Guy in the baseline is 3 feet away looking right at this.
Yep. So the guy closest to the play probably saw it true. The guy half court calls a travel, which it really wasn't. It was a clean layup for 2 points. But the referee got that call wrong, but no one stepped in to tell him, no one on his crew stepped in to say, don't do that. That's not the right call. Bucket stands. They let the call go. And you can sense that Iron Mountain was dejected, but then once the intentional foul was called, then credit to the Pewamo kid for making 2 free throws with 0.7 seconds on the clock to win the state championship. But that was just a brutal series of events, and Iron Mountain's honestly owed a state championship, it feels like, at this point, which takes away from Pewamo.
Who makes that call? Who calls that? You always foul with seconds left and whatnot. I mean, who calls that intentional?
If you're going to call that foul, call it the same in the first quarter as you would with 7 seconds to go, which they don't.
I read a coach hadn't seen it called that way all year. This is a coach for a different team who just gave a comment to the Detroit Free Press.
I've been covering high school basketball in West Michigan since I've been here in 2014. I've been covering it longer than that. Just as in general, as a journalist, I've never seen an intentional foul called on a play like that. Now, if a guy goes up and does something dirty, sure, but never on a play like that. Never in a state championship game.
Yeah, unreal. All right, well, this has been our inaugural Sports Ball with Nick and Jamal. Stand up so they can see how tall you really are.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on... Yeah.
We'll get some chairs.
We're going to try and make this a little more high budget, but don't count on it.
Unless Wilbon and Kornheiser want to contribute.
We'll scratch.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We take all donations.
But keep in mind when you're watching this, we don't have any stats in front of us. We don't have any spotters or producers in our ear, so... Some of what we say just might not be true. Maybe more of what we remember and rhetoric. But we're just talking about big sports and having fun and hoping you enjoying it watching at home. So, you got anything left to say?
No, that pretty much does it. I hope that's a good first episode.
All right. Good night, Canada.